There's a special kind of betrayal that doesn't come from a stranger, or even a spouse. It comes from the people who brought you into this world. After enduring years in an abusive marriage, I finally found the courage to leave. I thought the hardest part was over. I was so wrong. The final, crushing blow, the one that almost broke me completely, came from the two people I had spent a lifetime desperately trying to earn love from, my own parents. Their betrayal was the culmination of everything I had ever feared, a confirmation of the deepest, darkest insecurity they had planted in me since I was a child. It was the moment I realized that the family I was born into was just as dangerous as the one I had married into. This wasn't just a disagreement. It was a fundamental breaking of the unspoken contract between parent and child, a final act of abandonment that would force me to confront the most painful truths of my life. I remember that phone call like it was yesterday. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. I was proud, in a way. I was finally taking control of my life, stepping out of the shadows of abuse. I told them, simply, that I was divorcing him. I braced myself for questions, for concern, maybe even a little sadness. What I got was a cold, calculated dismantling of my worth. The first thing my mother said was, "Well, he will always be our son. We love him." The words hung in the air, a clear declaration of where their loyalty stood. It wasn't with me. It never was. Then came my father's voice, a chilling prophecy delivered without a hint of warmth. "No one else will ever love you," he said. "You'll realize you've ruined your life when you die old and alone." He wasn't finished. He told me the only reason they had for loving me at all was because the Bible commanded them to. Their love wasn't a feeling. It was an obligation, a chore. And then, the final punishment. They informed me they were writing me out of their will. Everything they had would go to my ex-husband, the man who had hurt me, because my decision to leave him was clear proof that I was, in their words, mentally unstable. In that moment, listening to their voices, a lifetime of confusing, painful puzzle pieces snapped violently into place. Every time they criticized me for being too sensitive. Every time they sided with a teacher, a friend, or anyone who had a problem with me. Every time their approval felt so conditional, so transactional, something I had to earn and could lose in an instant. It all made sense. It wasn't tough love. It was a blueprint. They had trained me, programmed me, to accept mistreatment. They had groomed me to be the perfect target for my abusive ex-husband. I had walked from one cage straight into another because they had taught me that a cage was all I deserved. The initial hope I had felt on that phone call dissolved into a numb, hollow shock. And then, a familiar, deep grief washed over me, the grief of a child who knows, deep down, that she will never be truly loved by the people who are supposed to love her most. But that phone call, as devastating as it was, turned out to be a gift. It was wrapped in the most painful packaging imaginable. But it was the one thing I needed most, the undeniable, irrefutable truth. They were never going to change. They were never going to be the supportive, loving parents I had spent my entire life yearning for. Their love was a transaction, a duty they performed grudgingly, a weapon they used to control and punish me. And I was done paying for it with my sanity and my self-worth. It was a painful awakening, like emerging into a light so bright it burns. I saw the pattern clearly for the first time, flashbacks to childhood moments of being belittled, of being told I was not enough, juxtaposed with almost identical moments from my marriage. The script was the same, only the actors had changed. My parents wrote the play, and my ex-husband had simply stepped into the leading role they had created for him. And so, I made a decision. I didn't argue with them. I didn't try to explain my pain or defend my sanity. What was the point? You can't reason with people who are committed to misunderstanding you, so I simply stopped. I hung up the phone, and I blocked their numbers. I blocked their emails. I ceased all contact. It was quiet. It was final. The grief that followed was oceanic. It was a tidal wave that threatened to drown me. But I wasn't grieving for the parents I had just lost. I was grieving for the parents I never had, the ones I had imagined and hoped for my whole life. I was mourning the death of a fantasy. And yet, underneath that vast ocean of grief, for the first time in my life, I felt something new. Solid ground. The ground of my own decision. The ground of my own worth, independent of their approval. The ground of my own peace. I know they probably believe every cruel word they said to me was for my own good. They likely tell themselves, and anyone who will listen, that they were acting out of some twisted form of love. And that, right there, is the real tragedy. Their awareness is so limited, their emotional landscape so barren, that they genuinely cannot see the devastation they cause. They can't comprehend the wound. And my healing required me to accept a very hard truth. I would never get an apology. I would never get an acknowledgement of the pain they caused. My closure couldn't depend on them. It had to come from me. It had to be me, finally, choosing myself. This story forces us to confront an agonizing question. When your own family uses faith, finance, and fear to control you, is cutting them off an act of sinful disobedience, or is it the ultimate act of self-preservation and spiritual self-respect? Does the commandment to honor your father and mother require you to submit yourself to their constant, soul-crushing dishonoring of you? We're taught from birth that family is forever, that blood is thicker than water. But what happens when that blood is toxic? What happens when the family bond feels more like a chain? This challenges us to redefine what loyalty truly means. Is loyalty enabling abuse to continue under the guise of family unity? Or is true loyalty being loyal to the truth of your own suffering, and to your fundamental right to end it? Where do you stand on the razor's edge between familial duty and personal salvation? These are the most difficult verdicts to deliver. Weigh the evidence and join the judgment. Subscribe to the Verdict Zone.